All right. Good morning, everyone. We're sorry for the difficulty. Our Wi-Fi went down, and then the web provider lost. I think we've got it fixed, and I apologize for you having to look at my face on this. This is not my plan, but in order for us to actually record this and put us on our website, you're going to have to look at me for the next 45 minutes. So with that, let me just provide some introductory remarks, just going over the outline today. Originally, we had structured this call just to be an overview with our Select Committee on Growth Management to provide them an update on some of the proposals that are being discussed in the House. But subsequent to that, we had a very nice meeting with our first Vice President and myself with Secretary Billy Buzzett to talk about some of the issues and proposals that he wants to promote this year, and he offered to participate in our webinar. So the majority of the presentation is going to be with Secretary Billy Buzzett.
Thank you.
Then we're going to provide an overview of the current House proposal and then just a couple of other initiatives. After the Secretary goes through some of his slides, which we'll control on our end, we'll open it up for any questions that you may have. Secretary Buzzett, on my screen it shows that you're logged in. Are you on the call?
Was he doing a roll call?
Yeah. No. Sherry Coven, are you on the call?
Eric?
Yes.
Yes, this is Billy Buzzett. I am on the call.
Great.
Oh, okay.
Okay. There's some background noise on a call. If y'all can mute your line, so long as you don't have background music playing, that'll help us. Secretary Buzzett, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to you. For those of you who don't know, the governor appointed Billy Buzzett as the new Department of Community Affairs Secretary. We know there's been a lot of issues associated with the governor's proposal regarding the Department of Community Affairs and the future of that agency. The Secretary, as some of you know, has, I think, a broad background in the planning area. He was in charge of strategic planning most recently for the St. Joe Company and was instrumental in getting approved one of the largest sector plans in the state. In addition to that, he has a broad background in working in government. He was the Associate General Counsel for Governor Bob Martinez. He was the Executive Director of the Construction Lien Law Study Group. And then later he was appointed Executive Director of the Constitution Revision Commission and also was instrumental in the creation of one of the first charter schools in the state of Florida. I have listened to a number of presentations by the Secretary. I think what he is going to talk to us about today is very interesting. And again, as I said, towards the end of his presentation, we'll open it up to any questions. With that as an introduction, Secretary, I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'm going to the best of my ability, control the slides over on this end.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate on your call. What Eric's put up on the screen is a presentation that I made, a month or so ago, and it summarizes the department's approach to growth management.
/library and click on Ask a Librarian.
Y'all still there?
We are. Yeah. Someone who just put us on hold. You got background music, so if you.
Sorry, that was me. So I could put you on speaker. I couldn't get into the webinar for sound. I can see, but I couldn't get voice. It's Tammy Hall. Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. But essentially, what I'd like to talk briefly about is three of the proposals that we're advancing, and then maybe close by talking a little bit about the department itself and the reorganization of it. We're very interested in alternative state review, working on maybe a more streamlined approach to land use, traditional land use in Florida. We also want to talk a little bit about sector planning, large-scale planning in the state, and how we can do more of that. And the last of the substantive things are the evaluation and appraisal report and an approach that we'd like to take as far as streamlining that. And then, of course, there's a lot of consideration as far as the future of the agency and where it may or may not be going next year, and I'm prepared to talk a little bit about that. Independent of all this, there's a lot of growth management issues out that I'm not going to speak about that are in various bills being advanced by the Florida Chamber, and we are working with them. And as that process evolves, I think as early as tomorrow in the House, the Community Affairs Committee there will be considering a pretty comprehensive bill that has not only the topics that I'm mentioning, but many others that are being advanced again by the Chamber. I'm just looking real quickly, and we'll skip through this slideshow pretty quickly, but as a kind of a predicate to some of the proposed changes we are contemplating, we think it's important to look at where we've been in Florida for growth management, the successes and failures that we've had, and then where we're going in the future. Why don't we go ahead and skip to the next slide if we could. And I'm going to go ahead and skip through these. I don't think we need to go through the history of growth management right now. Go ahead and keep on skipping. And skip again, please. And one more time. I think well, go back one if you could. Right here. I think it's important to note that in the last 3 years, we went back and just kind of looked to see the volume of comp plan amendments that the departments reviewed, and then what the outcomes were. And to my surprise, the vast majority of amendments, way into the 90th percentile, that we review are found to be in compliance with Florida law. And that resonated with me, and it caused me and others to look at this pilot program that's in law today, the alternative state review process. And why don't we skip a slide? We'll see if we catch up to it. Keep on skipping. Keep on going. Okay, right here. And essentially, there's 5 jurisdictions that have this pilot program today. It's been in law for about 5 years. And it takes DCA out of the middle of doing land use. So where a local government traditionally transmits after their first hearing to the department, and the department reviews it and produces an ORC report, and then returns the amendment back to local government, DCA is not going to be doing those ORCs anymore. If this alternative pilot process becomes the law of Florida, the pilot program will control. DCA will no longer be doing ORCs, nor will they be doing notices of intent. It cuts the process down dramatically. The department will still preserve their right to challenge at the end if they feel there's a compelling state interest, but otherwise we're going to let local governments that obviously know how to do this and do it pretty proficiently to continue on. And you'll see on the slide that there's actually 2 APAGA reports that have been done reviewing this alternative state review process. Both of them have given it very high marks, and so we think it's time to go ahead and consider perhaps a mid-course correction here, the state being a little less involved in the traditional land use process. We're going to perhaps get a little more involved in large-scale planning. One thing on this slide that's not in the draft, if you look at the last bullet, it says local governments should have the option of requesting a conventional review. The proposal that we advanced to both the House and the Senate suggested doing the alternative state review process, and then a local government that just doesn't feel comfortable without having more interaction with the department could go ahead and request to have a more traditional review with the ORC and the notice of intent. Right now, that local option portion is not found in either bill. So it's a pure alternative state review process, no opt-out. There's some exceptions on this alternative state review. If you're doing large-scale planning, let's say a rural land stewardship, any kind of comp plan amendment in an area of critical state concern, you have to go through the traditional process. But the vast majority of land use will now go through this alternative state review process. We can go ahead and move on if you'd like.
That's what it is.
So what we're contemplating now is maybe a little bit of a refocus. We're looking at another pilot program. If you advance to the next slide, it's optional sector planning. And essentially this has been in law for 15, 18 years. It allows large-scale planning. I have firsthand knowledge on this. I did the one in Bay County, the one that's a 78,000-acre plan. These allow a local government or governments to really look at large-scale, vast conservation opportunities, vast economic opportunities. It's been, I think, very successful. There are a lot of large landowners that today still retain a lot of acreage in this state, and it's at least my personal belief that the future of the state would be well served by engaging these landowners in a large-scale planning opportunity. So what we're proposing is to take this pilot program and removing the pilot nature of it, don't limit it to just 5 jurisdictions, allow it to have a broader base. One of the things we're also proposing is that the topic of need not be a factor as far as the long-term planning. We've had several large landowners come to the department before I was here wanting to do large-scale plans, but were unable to do it successfully because they couldn't demonstrate need. But if you're doing a 100-year plan, it's very difficult to forecast what the need accurately is. And by the time the need catches up with the land, my concern would be that the land would no longer be in the form and intact that it is today, so that it's probably in our best interest to really advocate and encourage large-scale land planning. We've been meeting with the Florida Land Council. They seem to be very receptive to the concept, and so we hope that the legislature finds this to be something of merit with respect to sector planning. So that's a second item that we're looking at. And the third, which may or may not be in this PowerPoint, so I'm going to just jump off of it, is the EAR process itself. And we've heard from a lot of local governments that the 7-year cycle on EARs can be somewhat onerous, and for some it's maybe more of an exercise of pushing paper, but not totally, not a real worthy exercise. So there's some language that we're going to be advancing. It too is going to be in both the Senate and House committee bills that would more streamline that EAR process, would have a triggering mechanism that if you don't trigger the mechanism, you do not have to do an EAR. Now, obviously, a local government that wants to do it can obviously do it, but as far as a state mandate, there's still a question on what that triggering mechanism may be, and it may just be as simple as a definition of what a large or small county might be or a small municipality, and if you're below that threshold, you wouldn't have the obligation to do it. So we're looking long and hard at that. I'd like to also talk about the reorganization, and you hear a lot about the department and the future growth management. When I came over here just a few months ago, I was surprised to learn that the vast majority of what the department does has nothing to do with growth management. About 94% of the budget is federal pass-through for various types of grants that we administer. The growth management portion of the department is about 3% of its budget and a fraction of its personnel. We believe that if the legislature adopts the streamlining alternative state review process, provides the opportunity for large-scale planning, and also revises and streamlines the EAR process, that the form of the agency may be a little bit different. So again, our focus has been on substance, not as much on form, but there is a move now on the form. There's a proposed agency called Jobs Florida, and a lot of the functions of the Department of Community Affairs will be folded into that Jobs Florida agency, including the community planning portion of it. That's still a work in progress. The actual function and layout of the agency is being considered today in the Senate and I think tomorrow in the House. So there's definitely a move afoot to reform and what this agency looks like. I'd be surprised if there's Department of Community Affairs in name next year, but definitely I think that the focus should be on what the substance of what the department does. I don't think that we're going to be diluting growth management at all. I think we've gotten to a point in time where a certain refreshing of the law is important. Recognition of home rule, I think, is important. Recognizing that local governments have worked very diligently and seem to be pretty proficient in doing land use, and that I'm hoping that the agency will take a role more of a resource. And of course, when we believe that there's a state interest involved, we obviously are going to jump in. So that's a quick thumbnail, somewhat rambling summary of where the department is on what we're doing. I'm going to be working front and center as far as the department's agenda through the legislative process.